Most people are so busy trying to keep up, they never stop to notice how disconnected they've become from their own time. Days blur together, tasks pile up. You're doing a lot, but it doesn't always feel like it's adding up to something meaningful. There's motion, but not much direction. Effort, but not always impact. The Stoics understood this long before smartphones and overflowing inboxes. They knew that a good life isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters, over and over, with intention. It's about building habits that keep you anchored when everything else feels uncertain. Because the truth is, discipline creates freedom, and routines, when chosen wisely, are how we take back control. In this video, we'll walk through 7 powerful habits that can help you create the most productive, focused, and fulfilling week of your life, using the same wisdom the Stoics lived by. These aren't hacks, they're foundations. And by the end of this, you won't just feel more productive, you'll feel more present. And if you appreciate what we're building here, there's one quick free favor I'll ask. Hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it. Day 1. Win the morning early. Most people don't realize it, but the battle for your entire day is often won or lost within the first hour of waking up. Not by some huge event, not by a big decision, but in the quiet, invisible moment when you either rise with intention or roll over and surrender to comfort. That one choice echoes through everything else. And the Stoics? They knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I must go to work, as a human being." Even as Emperor of Rome, with unimaginable power and comfort, he wrestled with that same human resistance, and he chose discipline. Because discipline, especially in the morning, isn't about being tough for the sake of toughness. It's about freedom. Freedom from chaos, from regret, from distraction. When you take charge of the morning, you tell the world and your own mind that you are not here to drift, you're here to direct. Let's talk honestly. Waking up early isn't about joining some elite hustle club or shaming yourself into grinding harder. It's about creating space. Space to think clearly. Space to breathe before the noise creeps in. Space to align yourself with who you actually want to be before the rest of the world tries to pull you in every direction. That early hour. It's where momentum lives. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." That's what mornings are for, not mindless scrolling or snoozing alarms, but waking up to your life, your thoughts, your potential. In the early hours, there's no one else demanding your attention. No emails, no meetings, no messages, just you and your mind, uninterrupted. That's a sacred window, and it's one too many people waste. Here's the kicker. You don't need to overhaul your life to start. You don't need to become one of those people who wake up at 4:30 and do yoga on a mountain. Just wake up earlier than you usually do, even 20 or 30 minutes. And don't fill it with junk. Don't open social media or check your inbox. Do one thing, just one, that pushes your life forward. Journal, read, stretch, plan your day, think. Whatever it is, make sure it's something that aligns with who you're trying to become. Plato said, "The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself." And that victory begins when the alarm rings. Do you roll over and delay your life? Or do you rise and meet it? When you consistently claim those early moments, something wild happens. Your day stops owning you. You start owning it. You move from reactive to proactive, from scattered to sharp, from tired to clear. And that change ripples out. You'll notice your decisions improve, your focus deepens, your energy lasts longer. Aristotle believed that excellence isn't an act, but a habit. And that habit? It can start as simply as setting your alarm for 30 minutes earlier. Prepare for it the night before. Lay out your clothes. Set your intention. Go to bed like you expect to win the morning. Because when you win the morning, you don't just get more done. You become someone different, someone deliberate, someone disciplined, someone dangerous in the best way. Socrates said, "Beware the barrenness of a busy life." That's the trap of starting your day without purpose. It feels like you're doing a lot, but you're actually just reacting, drifting, surviving. The early morning is your chance to flip that script, to act, not react, to create, not just consume. Day 2. Train your body, train your mind. We live in a time where it's easier than ever to be still, but not in a peaceful, meditative way. I mean motionless, glued to a screen, hunched over a desk, moving only from one chair to another. And somewhere along the line we started acting like taking care of our bodies was some kind of bonus prize, like movement was optional, like health was a side quest. But the truth is, your body isn't just a vehicle for your brain, it's part of your mind. The Stoics knew that. Seneca once said, "We treat the body rigorously so that it may not be disobedient to the mind." That wasn't just theory, that was training for life. Because when you let the body weaken, your discipline slips too. Everything gets heavier. You think slower, you react more, you snap quicker. But when you move, really move, your mind shifts, things click. You feel lighter, more capable, more present. It's not about chasing abs or running marathons, it's about claiming ownership over your energy. Aristotle believed the soul and the body weren't separate. He said, "What lies in our power to do lies in our power not to do." In other words, you have a choice every day to move or to stay still, to strengthen or to decay. And the craziest part? It doesn't take hours. It doesn't require fancy gear or elite training. It just takes a decision. Walk around the block, do 5 push-ups, stretch until something pops and then laugh about it. Pick something up and put it down. Breathe like you mean it. It's not about what you do, it's about that you do. Movement brings momentum, and momentum changes lives. There's a reason ancient warriors weren't just philosophers, they were fighters. Marcus Aurelius wasn't just a thinker, he was a general. He knew the mind and body worked together, and in the chaos of battle, or modern life, you need both to be sharp. When you move, you practice grit. When you sweat, you release stress. When you push through the last rep, the last minute, the last step, that's not just strength. That's training your willpower. That's building the kind of resilience that shows up when things get hard. Carl Jung once said, "Resistance to the unpleasant situation is the root of suffering." But when you've tested yourself physically, discomfort doesn't scare you anymore. You've been there. You've felt your muscles shake, your lungs burn, your legs wobble, and you kept going. That bleeds into everything. Stress at work, you've handled worse. Awkward conversation, you've done harder things before breakfast. Movement builds proof, and that proof turns into belief. Plato said that lack of activity destroys the good condition of every human being, while movement and methodical physical exercise save it. That was thousands of years ago, still true, maybe now more than ever. Because we're living in a time when strength is rare and needed, not just in the gym, but in relationships, in decisions, in emotions. We all want peace, but peace isn't passive. Peace is something you earn through control, through presence, through discipline, and it starts with your body. Socrates himself was known for his walks, for his endurance, for his ability to withstand hunger, cold, fatigue. Not because he wanted to look impressive, but because he understood that if the body is soft, the mind will follow. Comfort, when left unchecked, breeds weakness. But a little challenge each day, that builds armor. So if you're feeling stuck, Cloudy, restless, start with movement. Move first. Clarity will come. Strength will follow. And here's the simple truth. When your body feels strong, you become strong. You walk different. You speak different. You show up differently. People feel it even before you say a word. Today, do one thing, just one. Make your body work. Make your breath deeper. Make your heart beat harder. Not to punish yourself, but to wake yourself up. To prove to your mind that your body is still in the game. Make it a habit. Because when the body is strong, the mind doesn't just follow, it leads. Day 3. Put pen to paper. Journal. Most people live life like they're in the middle of a storm, wind swirling, thoughts crashing, noise everywhere. You might look calm on the outside, but inside, it's chaos. 1,000 ideas, worries, regrets, goals, emotions, all tangled up with no room to breathe. And here's the thing. If you never pause to untangle that storm, it owns you. You become a passenger in your own mind, just reacting, just surviving. That's why the simple act of journaling hits so hard. It's not about being a writer. It's not about having perfect grammar or deep insights. It's about giving yourself a space to actually think, on purpose, in peace. The Stoics didn't journal for Instagram, they did it for survival. Marcus Aurelius wrote his thoughts down, not for anyone else, but as reminders to himself, to stay grounded, to stay humble, to stay awake. His meditations were literally his private conversations with his own soul. When you put pen to paper, you do something powerful. You slow your mind down to the speed of your hand. That's where clarity begins. You start to notice which thoughts keep coming back, which worries are just noise, which ideas are worth chasing. One sentence becomes a pattern, that pattern becomes a mirror, and the mirror doesn't lie. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That's exactly what journaling does. It drags the hidden stuff into the light. It gives form to the invisible. And suddenly, you're not just feeling overwhelmed. You can see why. You're not just chasing goals. You can see what you actually want. That shift, that's where real change starts. Forget the perfect journal. Seriously, don't wait for the right notebook or the right pen or the right time. You probably have an old notebook lying around somewhere. Use that. Write one line. Just one. "Today sucked." Or, "I can't stop thinking about this conversation." Or, "I feel anxious and I don't know why." That's all it takes. Because the point isn't the writing. The point is paying attention. Socrates famously said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Harsh? Maybe. But he had a point. If you never pause to reflect, you miss the whole thing. You miss your own growth. You miss the lessons. You miss the quiet victories. Journaling is how you capture those things before they vanish. Picture this. A year from now, you flip open a beat-up notebook. You read what stressed you out, what made you hopeful, what you thought was the end of the world, and you realize you've grown. You're stronger now, wiser, calmer. That notebook becomes proof that you're evolving, that you're showing up, that you're doing the work even when nobody sees it. Plato believed that writing was a way of preserving thought, a way to make ideas last. And when those ideas are yours, raw, honest, unfiltered, they become your guide. They remind you who you are, who you want to be, what you've survived. And look, I get it. Some days you won't feel like writing. That's okay. That's human. But even then, even on those blah days, just write something. Didn't feel like writing today. That counts. What matters is the practice, the consistency, because that's what builds self-awareness. That's what builds discipline. Aristotle once said, "Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom." But you can't know yourself if you're always in motion. You've got to stop, think, reflect. And writing is the simplest, most accessible way to do that. So here's the challenge. Tonight, before bed, write down one sentence. Doesn't matter what it is. Don't overthink it, just show up. Let that sentence be your anchor, and do it again tomorrow, and the day after. Start ridiculously small, but stay consistent. Day 4. Do the thing you've been avoiding. There's a strange weight we carry around every day, one that no one else can see. It's not physical, but it's heavy. You feel it when you're doing something else, when you're relaxing, even when you're trying to fall asleep. That weight. It's the thing you've been avoiding, that one task that's been quietly haunting your to-do list. It's small enough to ignore in the moment, but big enough to drain your energy in the background. It could be an awkward conversation you've been putting off, a decision you've been dodging, that one email that's been in your drafts for too long, the project that matters but terrifies you a little. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Procrastination isn't just delay, it's avoidance of discomfort. And most of the time, the more something matters to us, the more we avoid it. Because deep down, we know it's going to change something, and change is scary, even when it's good. The Stoics warned us about this. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. We convince ourselves we'll get to it when we're ready, when the timing is better, when we feel more confident. But that mythical perfect moment, it never comes. There's no magical window where everything feels easy and safe, and the longer we wait, the heavier that weight becomes. The task doesn't go away, it grows teeth." Aristotle believed that excellence isn't an act, but a habit, and habits are built in moments just like this, when you choose action over avoidance. When you do the uncomfortable thing instead of waiting for courage to magically appear, because courage doesn't show up before the action, it shows up during it. Let's be honest, most of what we avoid isn't impossible, it's just uncomfortable. And every time you postpone it, your confidence takes a hit. You tell yourself, "I'll do it tomorrow," and part of you knows that's a lie. That's why it stings. That's why it drains you. Even when you're not thinking about it, you're breaking trust with yourself. Carl Jung once wrote, "What you resist persists. The more you avoid something, the more power you give it. It becomes bigger than it really is, scarier, more complicated. But when you finally face it, that fog lifts. You remember that you're capable, that you're not powerless. That action is the antidote to anxiety." Plato taught that the first and greatest victory is to conquer oneself, and that starts here. Not in grand battles, but in the simple decision to do the thing you don't want to do, the thing that would feel amazing to finish. Because momentum is real, progress is addictive, and nothing fuels it like crossing off the task that's been weighing you down. Socrates said, "Beware the barrenness of a busy life." Just because you're doing a lot doesn't mean you're doing what matters. You could stay busy all day with little things and still feel unfulfilled. But the moment you tackle the one thing you've been avoiding, everything shifts. You breathe deeper, you feel clearer, you stop running. So here's the move. Pick the task. You already know what it is. You've thought about it 5 times just while listening to this. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Do it today. Right after this, take the first step, even if it's messy, even if it's small, especially if it's uncomfortable. Because when you finally stop avoiding the thing that scares you, you don't just complete a task, you reclaim your power. You prove to yourself that you're in charge, that you move toward growth, not away from it. And that feeling, that's freedom, that's momentum, that's you becoming the person you were meant to be. Day 5. Protect your sleep like a superpower. There's this quiet contradiction in how we treat rest. We admire high performers, talk about peak productivity, and chase mental clarity. Yet so many of us wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. We've built a culture that rewards hustle and punishes stillness. But here's the truth most people don't want to admit. Burnout doesn't make you strong, it makes you sloppy. And sleep? Sleep isn't a break from life. It's where life gets rebuilt. The Stoics, for all their toughness, understood balance. Seneca wrote about the importance of rest, not as laziness, but as a reset. He warned against burning the candle at both ends, reminding us that the mind, like a blade, dulls without sharpening. In modern terms, that sharpening happens at night while you're sleeping. That's when your body recovers, your brain processes, your nervous system resets. Sleep isn't downtime. It's work. Silent, invisible, powerful work. Let's make it practical. You'd never expect your phone to survive the day on 12% battery, right? So why do we expect our minds to function on fumes? Focus, patience, memory, decision-making, all of it starts to break down when you're sleep-deprived. You become reactive instead of proactive. You're foggy, easily irritated, and you make choices from a place of survival, not strategy. And the scariest part, most people don't even notice it's happening. They think it's stress or just being off. But really, it's just their brain waving a white flag. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's exactly what happens when you skip sleep. Your unconscious takes over. Your impulses run wild. You become a passenger in your own life, half awake, half present, never fully grounded. And here's the thing. Good sleep doesn't start when your head hits the pillow. It starts an hour before that. It starts with boundaries, with shutting off the endless scroll, with stepping away from blue light and bad news. You've got to slow the mind before the body can rest. That's why the most productive people don't just have morning routines, they have nighttime ones too. A warm shower, a few pages of a book, a couple lines in a journal, something simple, something calming, something that tells your brain, hey, it's time to let go. Socrates said, "Beware the barrenness of a busy life." So many people fill their evenings with noise, emails, texts, one more episode, one more scroll. But they wake up drained, not because they didn't sleep long enough, but because they didn't transition into rest. They didn't give their mind permission to slow down. A day without a proper ending is like a sentence with no punctuation. It just runs on, confusing and incomplete. Aristotle believed that the energy of the mind is the essence of life. But that energy doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from knowing when to pull back, to rest, to recover, to prepare. Because when you prioritize sleep, everything else starts to click into place. Your workouts feel better, your emotions stabilize, your creativity returns, and maybe most importantly, you start showing up like you again. Plato once said, "The part can never be well unless the whole is well." You can't separate your productivity from your rest. You can't build a strong mind on a tired body. You can't reach your potential while ignoring your most basic need. So here's what I'd challenge you to do tonight. Set a bedtime. Stick to it. No excuses. Build a small ritual. Read something real. Breathe deeply. Write one line in a notebook. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be consistent. Because sleep isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's strength. It's the reset button for your nervous system, your emotions, your thoughts, your goals. Day 6. Expect the unexpected. There's something we all learn, usually the hard way, about life. It doesn't follow the script. It doesn't ask for permission before it interrupts your plans. The meeting runs late. The kid gets sick. Your phone dies right before the call. It's not personal. It's just life doing what life does, being unpredictable, inconvenient, messy. And most people, they fall apart at the first sign of that mess. Why? Because they expected smooth sailing. They expected people to behave, the printer to work, the traffic to flow. And when those expectations crash into reality, frustration takes over, stress builds, focus disappears. But the Stoics had a better way. They trained their minds not just for what they hoped would happen, but for what could happen. And that mindset shift, it changes everything. Marcus Aurelius called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. He didn't mean becoming negative or cynical. He meant being ready, visualizing what could go wrong, not to worry yourself sick, but to build psychological immunity. Because when you prepare for the unexpected, it loses its power to surprise you. You move from, "Why is this happening to me?" to, "I was ready for this." That shift turns panic into poise. Carl Jung once said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents." And one of the reasons we pass on anxiety and frustration to those around us is because we ourselves were never taught how to mentally prepare for life's chaos. We try to control everything rather than train ourselves to remain grounded when control slips away. But true strength isn't rigid, it's flexible. It bends without breaking. Socrates believed that wisdom starts with knowing how little we control. That's why expecting the unexpected is so powerful. You're not giving in to chaos. You're building armor. You're developing what modern psychologists call cognitive flexibility, the ability to shift, adapt, and respond without spiraling. It's not just mental toughness, it's mental grace. Picture this. You've got a huge presentation in the morning. You visualize the PowerPoint crashing, the lights flickering, someone asking a question you don't know how to answer. Instead of panicking, you run through it in your mind calmly. You breathe through it. You plan a backup. You imagine what you'll say, how you'll handle it. Then, when something does go wrong, which it often does, you don't freeze. You adjust. You smile. You lead. Aristotle taught that virtue lies in how we respond to challenge, not in how well things go when everything's easy. Resilience isn't built on smooth days. It's carved out in the moments that test you. And when you prepare, when you mentally rehearse adversity, you walk into the day with a different kind of calm. Not the fragile kind that breaks when disrupted, but the grounded kind that bends and resets without losing center. Plato said, "The first and best victory is to conquer self." And part of that victory is learning how to regulate your reactions before the storm hits. You can't control the weather, but you can bring a coat. You can't predict every outcome, but you can prepare for a few likely ones. And that preparation isn't weakness, it's wisdom, it's strength in disguise. So here's your challenge today. Take 5 minutes and rehearse the unexpected. Think through tomorrow. What could go wrong? What's likely to fall out of place? And then, most importantly, how would the best version of you respond? Not the panicked version, not the stressed out one, the version of you who breathes through the chaos and stays present. Do this often enough, and you'll start to notice something. Life still throws curveballs, but you don't flinch anymore. You pivot, you adapt, you respond like someone who's already been there. That's not luck. That's mental training. That's Stoicism in action. Prepare your mind and you prepare your life. That's the quiet superpower most people never develop. But you can, and it starts with one simple shift. Expect the mess. Then face it like it's just another step in your growth, because it is. Day 7. Remember you're going to die. Most people walk through life like they'll live forever. They don't say it out loud, but deep down, they believe there's always more time. More time to fix things. More time to say how they feel. More time to chase what matters. And so they wait. They wait until the timing feels right, until the fear passes, until the stars align. But here's the truth no one wants to say. We don't know how much time we have. That sounds heavy, I know. Maybe even a little grim. But the Stoics didn't talk about death to depress people. They brought it up to wake them up. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." He wasn't being dark, he was being clear. When you truly realize that life has an end, you stop wasting it. You stop obsessing over petty stuff. You start showing up differently. Carl Jung once said, "Life is a short pause between two great mysteries." That pause, that's what we're living in right now, and every second of it matters. Every second is a choice, to engage or to drift, to love or to hold back, to act or to hesitate. Most people are just waiting, scrolling through days like they're disposable, binging time like they have an unlimited supply. But death, when you really understand it, sharpens your vision. It makes now feel like a gift. Socrates, when facing his final moments, said something profound. To fear death is to think we are wise when we are not. He wasn't afraid, because he lived fully. He had made peace with the fact that the only guarantee in life is that it ends. And that gave his days meaning. It gave his actions weight. That's the freedom people miss when they avoid thinking about death. When you know it's coming, you live like it counts. Picture this. You're tucking in someone you love. Could be your child, your partner, your parent. It's just a normal night. But in your mind, you remember this truth, that you don't know if this moment will come again. So you linger. You say the thing you usually keep to yourself. You hold on a second longer. That awareness. That's what Stoics called memento mori. Remember you will die. Not to scare you, but to bring you into the present. Plato believed that philosophy is a preparation for death. And in a way, he was right. Because philosophy, especially Stoic philosophy, teaches you how to live without regret. How to see life not as something owed to you, but as something entrusted to you. And when you live that way, you become more courageous, more grateful, more alive. There's a reason you feel more grateful after a scare, or more connected after a loss. Mortality has a way of cutting through the noise. That argument you had? That fear you've been feeding? That bitterness you've been holding? It doesn't matter in the face of impermanence. Let it go. Let it all go. Not because you're giving up, but because you're finally choosing to live. Aristotle said, "Courage is the first of human qualities because it is the quality which guarantees the others." And it takes courage to live like your time is limited, to stop numbing yourself with distractions, to say what you need to say, to pursue what matters, even if it scares you. So don't wait for a wake-up call. Don't wait for loss to remind you of what you had. Let this be your moment. Say it now. Hug tighter, laugh louder, forgive quicker, create more, rest deeper. Love like it could be your last chance, because one day it will be. That's not meant to scare you. It's meant to free you. Today, not tomorrow, tell someone what they mean to you. Do one thing you've been putting off. Let go of something that doesn't matter and give yourself fully to whatever you're doing. Because life isn't about how long you get. It's about how awake you are while you're here. Life isn't something we're promised. It's something we participate in, moment by moment. And when you start showing up fully, even in the quiet, ordinary moments, that's when everything starts to change. If this message hit home, there's another video waiting for you right now on the screen, something I know you'll connect with just as deeply. Take what you've learned today, carry it into tomorrow, and when you're ready for more, we'll be here.